Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Aaron, for the introduction, a very kind introduction. I wish I was as famous as Aaron said I was. So yes, my name is Peter, and this is the subject I'll be talking to. Let me start with this slide. This is the synopsis of this talk. I hope everyone has received it during the intro and took a look at it before registering. And another reason I'm putting this up is to make sure that everyone is sure that they are attending the right talk. Yeah. Jokes aside, I really had quite a lot of fun preparing for this talk. First, upon reflection, I'm really quite privileged to be have this journey of being involved in IT planning and architecture since 2003 in various organizations, and I'll talk about it as I go along. The other thing I realized was it's also a very rare place where I had the chance to see this entire EA journey through its whole length, of almost 18 years, and how it's evolved along the way, as well as also that depth. I used to joke with people that almost every 3 to 6 months I may be working on something new and something interesting. I'm always learning, even right now. And that's the other exciting thing about this. Okay, just a little bit more about my talk. First of all, I'm just going to go through a relatively quick flyby. Each of these slides can easily become a 1 hour talk. So please bear with me. I will do a quick flyby across each of these slides. It will be a little bit of a touch and go. And at the end, depending on how much time there's, I'll take Q&A. So the Q&A at the end. So yeah, feel free to just type your question in the chat window. I'll pick it up at the end. So this talk is actually in 2 parts, right? It's enterprise architecture. So I will start with the enterprise bit, which is quite important so that we know the context of what I've been working in. And then we'll jump into architecture, right? Okay, let's dive right in. So what we have here, oops, did I skip a slide? Yes. So this is loosely speaking the structure of our public healthcare system, which many people are not aware. I think I've talked to many people in the public. They think of everything as just government hospital or government polyclinic. It's actually a little bit more complex than that. Basically, there's a Ministry of Health, and then there's this private company that's fully owned by Ministry of Health that not many people are aware of. That purple thing over here is MOH Holdings. So under all the public healthcare institutions are basically subsidiaries of MOH Holdings. Yeah. The other thing that I think a lot of members of the public some may be familiar, some may be not, is that we actually organize them into 3 different companies. Yeah. And they are Sing Health, National Healthcare Group, and NUHS. And each of them have a mix, basically a mix of healthcare institutions under them. So ranging from acute hospitals like everyone knows SGH, Tan Tock Seng, and National University Hospital, and also the other polyclinics that are basically organized together with these hospitals as one group, right? So the 3 broad ones in the middle are essentially the ones that the public see the most. You see this list of logos at the bottom, right? So, and you see IHIS in one corner. Well, we are one of those supporting organizations that cut across providing common services for the entire ecosystem. So, for example, you can see AIC here is Agency for Integrated Care. And that's also an interesting entity that helps to coordinate both social and health aspects of care. It's health and social quite closely related when we work with the community. Another example is ALPS, which is basically a centralized pool of professionals handling logistics and procurement. So procurement is a very big thing in healthcare. Cost of drugs can be quite a important thing. So organizing it helps to control that as well. Okay, so broadly speaking, that's kind of the structure of our healthcare system. And it kind of reflects my personal journey as well. I started from MOH HQ. I was doing basically IT planning stuff there. And then when MOH Holdings was expanded, I moved into MOH Holdings. And that was when I became specialized as an enterprise architect, really, over there. And then as life went on, I decided to move closer to the action, which is why I'm now in IHIS, in the thick of things. Okay. Just a bit about how IHIS is formed. This was kind of our journey. We were formed in 2008. Gee, that's about, wow, 13 years ago. The formation of the IHIS journey really reflects how the healthcare system was also has evolved. Just now I showed the 3 cluster, right? At 2008, it wasn't like that. We started as 2 clusters, SingHealth and NHG, and that was the point when there was a decision to break them up into 6 clusters for reasons I won't get into here. You'll take another whole afternoon. But that presented a challenge for IT organization, right? So it's not sustainable to split to have 6 different groups of people doing firewall, 6 people different groups of doing infra, and that was kind of the reason why IHIS was formed. So we just basically move all the IT stuff into a common organization called IHIS. And then at that point in time in MOH Holdings, where I was, then it's become more responsible for national planning and as well as national systems. So we fast forward in 2016, IHIS went through another transformation. Basically, the IT function in MOH Holdings merged in. So then now we have basically a one IT services organization. So that's enough for the history. What does it mean? This means that our role is this expanded one right here. Okay. In summary, the 3 things that we focus on is to help to digitize, connect, and help the healthcare ecosystem analyze their data as well. Okay. Can also see that although a lot of our immediate stakeholders or customers is public healthcare institution, our responsibility is broader than that. Yeah. We have solutions that touch the public directly. The most common one you'll see would be Health Hub. And by the way, do download in the app, install the app in the phone. We are rolling out more and more stuff on Health Hub, some of them COVID-related things. So you'll find that useful as well. And also, we also support beyond just public healthcare sectors. Some of our partner organizations, whether it's solutions that reach out to private hospitals or and VWOs. The other point I want to mention is that we are a growing organization. The last version of this slide a couple months ago did not have 3,000 over people. We are growing by the month because of various reasons that I'll explain later. Right, and we also do a number of things. Although large numbers of our people, for obvious reason, are involved in either developing new IT systems or maintaining and operating them. But that's not all that we do, right? We also support policy development, governance rules of systems. Cyber defense, cyber security is extremely important for us. We all know that healthcare is a hot target, and we've been hit before. so we're very cautious about cybersecurity. And besides the bread and butter stuff, we also explore the new stuff, right? The next generation things, AI, robotics, and we also we don't do that all, but with ourselves, so we work with partners. So in short, this is in short a slide to help to illustrate the breadth as well as the scale of what we do, which is the reason why we need so many people. Okay. And let me talk about an anchoring initiative that's actually particularly interesting for enterprise architects, and that's HITMAP. It's a Health IT Master Plan. So this Health IT Master Plan, we kind of did it just after the that merger that I mentioned between MOHH and IHIS. And basically, we started from it's a very enterprise architecture, textbook enterprise architecture approach. We adopted that process. It was if I remember correctly, about a 6-month journey. And basically, we took the ministry's she likes to call it, right? That's illustrated here. The beyond hospital to community, beyond quality value, beyond healthcare to health. So all these are objectives and strategies at the very conceptual level, right? So we started by, so how can we organize IT to actually support this? This is very classic enterprise architecture planning approach, right? So in the end, what happened was we developed a set of business capabilities. It was broken down into two groups. We had a business track that focused on workshopping with a broad number of stakeholders, all those that I described earlier, and to try and distill what are the business capabilities that we need to drive healthcare moving forward. And then I was responsible for the IT track. So I was just running along, trying to organize, okay, so if these are the business capabilities, then what IT capabilities do we need to support them? And at the end of that exercise in about 2014, it's mentioned here, we distilled that into 7 transformation programs, right? Which are listed here, like population profiling, population enablement, and so on. So what did this all mean? What happened was, for each of these transformation programs, then we started identifying leads, programs, key initiatives, and basically just drove development in these areas. So from 2014, 2018, we started kicking off all those projects to start building some of these foundational systems, right? And that's time really flies. So it's almost been 6-7 years since then. A lot of these projects have kicked off, and they are really multi-year transformation projects. I'll elaborate in detail what some of them look like, right? But they are really multi-year projects. So just recently, because it was so long ago, we just did a quick refresh. That's just simply because technology has moved on. When we started, IoT wasn't so hot, for example. Robotics wasn't a big thing, so we just did a bit of a refresh to make sure that we are still relevant. In short, what I'm saying is that we've been I find we've been quite fortunate in healthcare that we managed to have a function as well as a senior management who believed that there is value in having a enterprise architecture approach to inform planning. I think as I dive into detail, you'll see how that plays out. This is just a elaboration of what I mentioned about our ecosystem. I briefly mentioned the various aspects. Actually, this is two slides merged into one. Sorry, people. I should have separated on two slides. If you see the gray circles behind, that actually illustrates the complexity of our ecosystem. It's each of those gray circles represents a different kind of organization that we have to support. So they range from like different levels of the technical word for its acuity. That's a healthcare jargon for how intensive the care is needed. So most people will be familiar with the one in the middle, which is all our things that happen in the hospitals, whether you stay inside or you just visit, right? But there's a lot of care actually happens in what we call primary care, whether you go to a polyclinic or GP. And also over time, we also want people to move more to the left-hand side, have better self-care so that you don't even need to come to the system. And then similarly on the other side, we also have in our nursing homes and some of our community hospitals, a lot of that is very heavily driven by volunteer welfare organizations. Although these recently government is starting to also build infrastructure there, but traditionally a lot of volunteer welfare organizations. I like to joke that when people say enterprise architecture, there usually is an enterprise. In our case, I don't even have the luxury of having a enterprise. I actually have to architect for an ecosystem. And that actually presents quite a number of challenges. Unlike the typical EA methodology would say, oh, get the CEO to sign off, or when you have difficult trade-offs to be made, we'll get the board to decide or get the CEO to decide. In our case, sometimes not so straightforward. We have to really balance the needs for very different kind of stakeholders with very different considerations. Yeah. So just imagine the private hospital who has some profit drivers versus VWOs. It's quite interesting. Okay. Let me move on. This is a sampling and incomplete or non-exhaustive list of the kind of things that we do. It's impossible to put everything that we do on a page. We have easily more than 1,000 projects a year, and we're managing over 800 IT systems. And I'm sure my inventory is not complete. Yeah, but just give you a taste. What are some things I can of interest? Well, let me at least talk about the range of things that we do. Right, we have both things that are front line or front end, which are all the care delivery solutions that you see here. They are used by doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals, and we also take care of all the back office stuff. Not just the tradition. In addition to traditional things that any company needs, your finance, your HR, all that. There are also some that are specific, unique to healthcare and quite complex. Like health financing, for example. Some may have read recently in the papers that there's a new CFP that was announced about insurance and claims. So seemingly simple things like insurance and claims, because of the complexity of our ecosystem, requires complex solutions. And then we also cover both clinical things that healthcare professionals use, like specific stuff like lab and pharmacy solutions. And we also have things for non-clinical stuff, so systems for non-clinical stuff. Things like command control dashboards, our RFID, we're quite big, a lot of institutions quite big on RFID to tag items and all that, manage inventory as well as people. The solutions range from those that are within an institution or within a hospital or clinic, such like the medical record systems and all that. And we also have systems that cut across, help with Either those that are with community care that I mentioned, or some are for care continuity. Like one of our systems is the National Electronic Health Record, the one that the GPs, doctors, etc., can all see from different sources what's happening to a patient, so they can provide better care. So, last thing I wanted to mention was that our solutions also range from the bread and butter stuff, to cutting edge stuff. Telehealth is getting very hot. For obvious reasons. We were quite fortunate to actually start on some telehealth initiatives even before COVID. Turns out it's life-saving, as I will get into, as well as new technologies like chatbots, as well as physical robots. Some you may not realize. If you observe, if you go around the hospital, you can see some of these robots already doing simple things like helping to move things around and so on. But we're looking, I know the healthcare institutions are starting to experiment even more with that. Because one of the challenges in healthcare really is manpower. You can see everyone's really high. It's a very high touch industry. So so how would robots help alleviate the manpower needs? Simple things like even helping with moving of patients and all that. To help prevent nurses from getting injury and things like that. So I'm just speaking off the top of my head. If I keep again, I can speak a whole hour for this one. So I will just stop here. It's just just give you a taste of what we do. Yes, so this, I promise this is my only slide and about COVID. Once again, COVID is probably another half a day conversation. I guess COVID hit everybody. So I won't talk about the general stuff. But it hit us because we're right in the thick of it, right? We are after all in the healthcare business. So I'll just briefly share that the entire organization, we were actually doing two different things. What's probably more the public can see more is about the care facilities, specifically Expo, where I happened to I was actually there for about a month. So I wasn't in the front line, but I was there helping out. So I got to see what's going on there. It was really impressive. That was actually about helping to support that setup. And there were a couple of things we do, from the very basic thing, which is just having people to go there and quickly set up computers on wheels that the people, the frontliners who went there to work were able to work with, right? This is just basic IT needs. But one of the solutions that would be of interest would be our vital signs monitoring solution. So what was happening is that basically the care requirements for the stable patients that were in the Expo CCF is relatively simple. Just monitor the temperature, blood pressure, and the SpO2, blood oxygen level. And they're just supposed to monitor me 3 times a week. Now, imagine, the large number, we have thousands of residents and they're not quite patients anymore. And if our healthcare professionals, nurses have to keep going in and out, then wear the PPE, take out, there's exposure risk. It's also quite wasteful, yeah. So, and that was the reason behind that solution. That worked quite well. So after that, when we set it up, they just did self-service, essentially, went in, measured, and then key in on their own. And then we had the dashboards to help them manage that. Simple solution, but the secret sauce was in our ability to execute very rapidly. And the other thing was the fact that the understanding of the requirements and this, I mean, it's all compressed, right? We're all learning on the fly. So really impressed with and very grateful, to be honest, of my colleagues who were involved in this, who were basically really working 7/24 on this. Then the other aspect I'll briefly touch on is really the solutions within the institutions. Because all of our hospitals and healthcare institutions need to pivot, to support COVID. Tan Tock Seng in particular, for some of you may not know, the National Center for Infectious Diseases, that nice new building where all our initial COVID patients were all sent to, that's actually situated there. So as a campus, they actually needed to rapidly manage how they shift resources, staff and people around monitoring availability of beds and things like that. We actually have, if you can see that screen behind, that's the dashboard, the command center, the dashboard, dashboards actually that's set up in Tan Tock Seng Hospital, and they kind of use that to help manage the support for COVID as well. So yeah, like I said, lots of stuff. I better move on to the architecture bit, otherwise I'll be completely out of topic already. Right, so let me now switch gears. We'll talk about our architect's office. So this is where I come from, the chief architect's office, and this is kind of what we look like. Okay. Loosely speaking, we have like three broad functions that we take care of. Enterprise architecture, okay, solution architecture for key projects. Unfortunately, we just never have enough solution architects to cover all the solutions that we need. And we also have a standards and data quality team. This team is actually quite special. I'll elaborate later, but for now, it's a blended team. Remember in the synopsis I mentioned that we have it's a complex domain of health and tech professionals, tech domain, right? So the way we help to deal with that is the fact that we, in our standards and data quality team, we actually have clinical staff, doctors and nurses, who thankfully have the rare breed who have an interest in IT as well. They belong actually to another organization in IT, it's the clinical informatics group. So we kind of borrow them in our CAO function to help us with data standards. I have one slide where I'll talk about why that's important. Okay, just to complete the context, these three bubbles in the middle is actually the IT's architecture office. There's also a smaller architecture team in Ministry of Health itself. That's the National Chief Architect's Office, who is led by the CTO there, who happens to be one of our committee members. But most of the staff in the architecture office are really from ITs. We are the same bunch of people, but they're sort of deployed there to support ministry work. And by and large, it's mostly around governance and standards development. Right. In addition to that, earlier I mentioned IHIS is an organization of about 3,000 people. I also talked about the various clusters, and they are also forming their own teams that develop IT solutions as well. So almost everyone said they need architecture support, they need architecture guidance. So we do our best in this little team to try and support them. I mentioned a little, but just to give you a sense, this entire chief architect's office is about 70 odd people. And here's a little hint as well. We have open positions for more than 10 staff across all the functions. So we are seriously looking out and for more people to join us on this journey. Right. So I talked about how we're organized. Then let me talk about what we do. um, so this is kind of like the architecture for our architecture office. Yeah, architects always draw diagrams like this, all laid out in a nice X and Y axis. So broadly speaking, we cover four different layers of architecture. If you like to see it that way, okay. We do four different areas of things. We help with envisioning. We help with specific planning, right? And I think the bulk of our work is around either specific solution development. Some we help with development where we can, and we cannot. We still try to apply some governance for our solutions, and over time, right? We also try and build as rich as possible a set of standards, so that people can self govern, certify. And our standards are in two different areas. Some of the more technical ones you see on the left, for example, what application common services, network related standards, platform standards, the typical IT standards that you will find in any architecture shop or any IT shop for that matter. And we also have this very specialized area for data standards. And we cover both clinical stuff, that is healthcare related special areas, as well as non-clinical stuff, such as demographics, name, address, phone number, that sort of thing. Anyway, just to orientate everybody, in short, we start by helping the whole health sector develop roadmaps. Yeah, I'll explain a bit of what that is. Heat map is one such thing. And then out of that roadmap exercise, we would have specific areas of focus, specific business domain that we develop goal state architectures for. That's the plan bit. That's just a deep dive. The other thing that we kind of do also, I mentioned 800 over systems, right? To be honest, that's not ideal. Yeah, and we also have a lot of systems that can be quite old. So we have also a function of at least monitoring and help to give advice on how to rationalize our IT landscape to become more optimized along the way, and the rest I think I've mentioned. I think an easier way to understand each of these is if I go to them in detail. So that's what the next couple of slides will be. Yeah. Okay. I'm doing a quick time check to know how much to go in. Right. Okay. So my fellow organizers, please correct me if I'm wrong. I have up to 3:15. Yeah. So I will just keep going while watching the clock. Okay, I talk about envision and plan. And I mentioned just now the heat map, the health IT master plan. So these are, I just culled certain artifacts from that just to illustrate how we did it. So you see the capability model here. So I mentioned that we workshop with everybody through very extensive exercise to distill this capability model. We kind of use this because we can't reason about architecture with a list of 800 systems. We have to organize them, and so we use a capability model to organize it. How do we test it? Basically, we analyze it according to the current state. So what you see here in current state, right, is an expansion of basically one of these gray boxes. Yeah, and you see the 6 on the top. There are 6 logos over there. That was the six different clusters. So we just basically mapped out to try and understand the current landscape where it is. And through this picture, it is quite easy to see where there may be proliferation of systems and where there are common systems and so on and so forth. And we drew some insights out of that exercise. Then thereafter, that's where the fun bit happened, at least for me, was that we went through a trade-off analysis for all these things. So you see over here, this is standard, your Harvey balls, your half moon, full moon kind of thing. And this represents probably one of the rows here in the current state. So we did that for every single one. Yeah. And basically made some recommendations. Short version of that is that obviously there's intense debate on what the correct configuration would be. I'll skip that, and basically certain decisions were made, and then we use that to help map out a multi-year transition roadmap. So you see here the transition roadmap. The rows depict basically all the different major initiatives that we had, major systems. Basically, through this exercise, we actually made that recommendation of how to build new systems that will replace quite a lot of existing ones in many different areas, right? What you see on the top, the scale is actually in years. And in fact, to be completely honest, when I did this, I was overly optimistic. It's actually more complex than I expected it would be. But anyways, this is where so-called the EA work ends. And then we kind of transit it over to delivery teams to do the next level of planning. But what EA did actually, the EA team did help with is the initial set of interdependency considerations. So at least for a start, we knew that we needed a joint management office that will coordinate between all these. Right. So that's the broad ambition phase for the roadmap. Then I move on to the specific planning area for the goal state architectures. I intentionally picked these two examples here on the right because I think it's easier for a public audience to understand. The first one is it's a goal state architecture we developed for patient systems of engagement. Okay, and this other one here on right is for contact centers. What's particularly interesting, just let me mention a couple of things interesting about this. These goal state architectures, they don't just talk about one system. And one of the reasons why we had to develop these is because there are different points of view on how different systems should interact. Should we have one app or multiple apps, for example? And what are the rules for multiple apps? How do they interact with each other? These things are the apps are obviously in a public space. How do we control such that public information is readily and easily accessible, and information that's more sensitive to each patient will be under tighter control, such as two-factor authentication, for example, things like this. And also these systems of engagement, right? In order for them to be really useful and powerful, you need to be able to do real transactional stuff with it. And that also means that you need to interface with real systems of record, right? To for example, set appointments and things like that. And then how do we do that safely? How do we do that without impacting all these systems of record, some of which can be very old and running on old technology? So how do we do that? So yeah, you can't see all these in this slide, but I hope it gives you a flavor of that. Then contact center, this was kind of interesting. So traditionally, our contact centers are just call people, and typically people call to do book appointments. That's the most common transaction. But again, our colleagues in that space are also looking ahead. Right, they know that people are moving away from voice and even and SMS and WhatsApp. Very soon they have to go multi-channel, right? And also again, it's a manpower consideration, implementing chatbots and so on and so forth. So again, our CEO office, one of our architects actually developed some point of view to guide that. I also brought this one out just to show the fact that the goal state architectures, they don't hang by themselves, yeah? They interact with each other. So for instance, if, one of the channels, the contact center would be the Health Hub app, for instance, right? So one of the functions in Health Hub app could be, I'm trying to contact the hospital, and how would these two systems interact, right? So the goal state architecture try to give some guidance to that. So in short, just to sum up this slide, my intent is just to demonstrate complexity without going through the details, and also to help express the one of the reasons why you need enterprise architecture is that systems don't hang by themselves, don't stand by themselves. The IT systems live in a complex ecosystem where they interact with each other, and we really need another team of or another set of professionals beyond the group of people that are just responsible for delivering each system, to help sort out the interdependencies and things like that. So that's, I guess, my point for this slide. Let me move on. This is where I mentioned that we also have teams that focus on specific solutions. Although I did mention we are like almost 70 people, it's still not enough, simply because of the scale of some of the projects that we are dealing with. So I just extracted some architecture artifacts from one of the flagship project that we are working on. It's a replacement of a core system that all doctors and nurses use in summary. The intent of showing this diagram is to just illustrate complexity, yeah, and across the different views. So our architecture actually have to balance all the different views. And their focus really is on the non-functional requirements, what we call the non-functional requirements. Other people call it the ilities, you know, your resiliency, scalability, extensibility, cyber security, although that's not quite ility, but you get the idea. So that's how we actually support project teams, because most project teams would have either people who are more the functional analysts and business analysts who work with the users to develop functional requirements, or maybe more technical experts or product specific experts. I didn't mention earlier, but we are a very cost heavy organization, commercial off the shelf products. And therefore, we also need people who understand the product in and out and how best to use it. So so where our solution architects come in to help is to help look at some of these non-functional aspects, and especially things like how safe it is by itself, and how safe it is working with other systems. Right, the context diagram sound illustrates all the different systems and people they need to work. Let me catch a breath. Something that may not be obvious to many people is this logical view here. This logical view. If you stare at it carefully, it's actually references this heat map business capability. The colors are different. The boxes look slightly different, but the content is actually the same thing. I just want to bring up the point that good architecture artifacts are reusable, and also it's like fractals. You keep going down, drill down the next level, continues to be useful. Let me briefly talk about the right hand side as well. This is just to share that one of the considerations that we have to make as well is cybersecurity and safety. Some of our systems are actually used by multiple people. So you see these different color zones here. This is actually, we actually have to segment the same system, the accessing data. it's both internal users as well as our partner users. Whether the GPs in the GP clinic and we need the same view of the same data, and yet you want to do that safely. I mentioned that we can be a high signature for attack, and that actually essentially adds complexity to the system. So these are some of the things that our architects work on as well. All right. So let me move on. And finally, standards and guidelines. So this is a bit more bottom up. Let me just talk through a few of these because I picked these because they're kind of interesting. Some of you may be familiar. We actually have a H cloud. This basically a private cloud. Let's put it this way, our own hosting organization. And in each of our hospitals, for various reasons, they also have their own local data center. So we actually provide guidance on that. When does it make sense to host in a local data center? When does it make sense to host in a H cloud? And moving forward, we are also developing guidances for commercial cloud for obvious reasons, right? Cheaper, more scalable, but got security concerns. So one of the work that we do is to develop guidance when to put things where. So for example, in a local for local data center considerations could be things like latency. Is it high volume traffic? For example, people want to do video analytics nowadays. So you don't want to be sending the video out to a central data center and so on and so forth. So we provide guidance for that. And then let me talk a little bit about network. Our network is also complicated by the fact that we have non-traditional IT systems, right? We even have systems, for example, they just manage the sterilizers of equipment that goes into operating theaters. And these all come from equipment vendors, right? So we also have to, one of the things that we do is to also provide guidance on how to deploy and organize all these things safely in a way that we can manage as well. And this is getting more interesting. So our infrastructure architects have a really fun time with a very evolving space. People are now interested in Internet of Things and medical devices. Right. And they are all IP based. They are all running on the same IP network. So how do we do that safely? That's in our converged network stuff. Also, I mentioned robots just now. And these robots is not just robots. Now, all kinds of things are getting smarter. Right. The lifts are getting smarter. One of the use cases is this: and you need the robot to be able to talk to the lift, to open, close, and also work with our enterprise IT system to know which patient I'm dealing with, right? So it just makes the network design very interesting. Again, my summary is we actually do a lot of stuff. Most of it is actually still evolving, and so we just try and give guidance and patterns for that. As they become more stable, then we try and formalize them into standards and publish them, so to speak. All right. Okay. This concludes my fly through. So if there's time, I will take questions on any specific area. But let me now talk a little bit about our organization. I started earlier with that Venn diagram of the three different types of professionals that we have in our CAO office. So this is an elaboration of that. Upon reflection, right? So even the enterprise architecture function itself, we also have to adapt and evolve as the organization evolves, right? So I would say, as historically, especially during the heat map days, the enterprise architecture and the solution architecture teams were kind of separate for good reasons as well. Because that was a very intense road mapping and planning exercise. So we just enterprise architecture, we just dedicate on that. but there's one risk that can happen with that, is that it becomes too it's become unbalanced. So like I mentioned earlier, I hinted that I was overly optimistic in some of the time frames. So when they get down to the next level of detail to implement any of these major transformation initiatives, actually take longer than that, right? So just to share, recently we've done some slight readjustment to the way our CAO is formed. It's the teams are now blended, so to speak, so that for a number of reasons. One is what I just mentioned earlier, to balance both views so that it improves the quality of our deliverables and artifacts. The other part is for our own professional development. I like to think I'm more from an EA background, so I'm more of a breadth person, yeah. But we know that that's not a good thing in the long run. Actually, I just found this recently from the net. This is the first time I've heard of T-shaped professional and pie-shaped professional. This is first time I heard of this thing called comb-shaped professional. In short, it just means that we just need a bit of both breadth and depth. It's not just individual thing alone. So that's kind of how we are organized into small teams of by domain, by topic, area of interest, with a mix of both historical enterprise architects and solution architects. And we start to do each other's work, so to speak. So that's kind of sharing how our organization is evolving. Let me talk about standards. I mentioned this earlier, our data standards team. Let me just give everyone a taste of why I say we need the healthcare professionals. Yeah. We developed our this Singapore drug dictionary, right? And this is just a set of codes that we use to refer to drugs in all our systems and all that. Just give you a taste of the complexity, right? The reason why this is not so straightforward is there are different professionals that deal with drugs, right? Doctors will prescribe, and then you have pharmacists who dispense the drug. We have the procurement and logistics people who need to buy and sell the drugs, and then we have people handling the billing and payment for that. All of them look at drugs differently. For most clinical requirements, the active ingredient is the important part. But for the pharmacists, they really also need to know what brand it is and what shape or form it is, for example. So just to give you a taste, in short, something called a drug code means different thing to different people. And somehow for our IT system, we need to somehow design something that meets everyone's needs. So I'm not the expert in this way. That's my layman understanding of this. But all I can say is that this is one of the things that we are uniquely developed in Singapore for Singapore needs. It's tailored towards the X thousand drugs that's licensed by HSA for use in Singapore. And you can see even for a simple thing like Panadol, we have many entries for some of the reasons I described. And we have a team of pharmacists basically working with their user community and with the IT systems to make sure that this works. Okay. And then I briefly touch on, so that's just for drugs. But besides drugs, we also cover a whole bunch of other codes. You call that. In managed IT systems, it's just one field, but each of these fields balloons into this big area of complexity. Like this SOMAN and ICD, mostly for diagnosis of condition. Then there's also another equivalent international standard for all the different lab tests. So unfortunately, healthcare standards is not as neat as some other standards. They are quite localized, and there's there's a lot of free play, so to speak, and therefore we also need our own local team to lock it down so that we are able to have systems that interchange meaningfully data with each other. I feel terrible that I'm probably oversimplifying the work of our standards colleague, but it's really it looks simple, but it is not after working with them. All right, so I'm almost coming to the end. I realize I've overrun my time. Just to briefly share, I asked my colleagues actually for some, reflection quotes, and you can see some of these on the left. In short, I just want to say that I actually feel very privileged to work with a team of very highly diverse team of professionals, coming with different skills, different backgrounds, and yet we understand we are all small pieces of the puzzle of supporting something greater than ourselves. Especially COVID, to be completely honest, that was a personally very motivating and very encouraging for me to see that we have colleagues that do that. So we are indeed. So this is not just an organization tagline. I can touch my heart and say we are really very proud of our work. But we also recognize it's just going to get harder. So I picked up these 5 V's. Actually, I stole them from big data, but here I'm referring to just our IT solutions. I can apply the same five words to our IT solutions, which also increases the demand for architects' work, right? The autonomy part, really, I mentioned just now about the institutions. One of the initiatives that's going on is to help enable or support each of these initiatives, each of these institutions to also start have more autonomy and create their own solutions for various good reasons. All this just adds to the load or the need for more architects to support. And these two basically leads to my last point. We are really in a war on talent. It's a happy problem, selfishly, as architectural professionals, but it's still a challenge. I like to joke that in my past 18 years in the business, I've never been able to fill all my headcount. Still true. So with that, this is my last slide. This is a thinly disguised recruitment talk. So if any of this excites you, do just reach out to us. You can apply directly or come reach out to me and find out more. And I hope this flyby has been of interest to everybody. And I'll let the organizers decide if I should take questions.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I think there are 2 questions that.
Okay, let me open my chat window then.
Yeah, directly.
Okay. Oh wow, 2 questions. How is success being measured? Okay, let me read out the question. Sorry, I just realized nobody can see it. So this question is this from Nolan. It says, given the complexity of the use cases and landscape, how is success being measured? And in your perspective, what were the measurable gains from more than 6 to 7 years of implementation? This is a good question, and thanks for the question, Nolan. So I'll just share my personal view. I think I don't dare to say that we have actually succeeded. I feel that we've done well. I think success is really well, that's one of the challenges of enterprise architecture, to be completely honest. Because of the time scale of what we do, some people like to allude it to like city planning. So the person who drew up the plans for, let's say, Jurong Island or the Punggol New, he's probably no longer in URA when all the people have moved in and are joining the facilities. And actually enterprise architecture faces similar challenges. That's why I sort of started this talk by saying that I feel very privileged to be in part of an organization where senior management actually believes in the value of this. So actually it's more than 6-7 years. I mentioned so I said Hitmap was 2014. Yeah, it's almost 2014. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, it's about 6 to 7 years. It's not actually quite implementation. Many of our recommendations are being implemented. For example, the replacement of core systems, we are going through all the different healthcare institutions, and they belong to different organizations. Easily each of them 5 to 10 year projects end to end, right? Procurement itself, the whole procurement exercise can be, oh goodness, approval and procurement is usually another 2-3 years, and then so on and so forth. And the challenge is that these are there are also other major projects, and then there's a lot of interdependencies between all of them. So my short answer to success, the measurement of success, is things not falling apart, so to speak, as life goes on. And the other test is if in the process of implementation, if some of the things that we were able to analyze or foresee or prevent, and then some of those scenarios pop up. That's another way that we self-measure success. Another way, but personally, I would think measure of success is longevity. So if remember, given the length of time, we actually changed various stakeholders. I think we changed definitely different ministers of health, different ministry stakeholders, different hospital stakeholders. So the longevity of the architecture, that's actually another measure of success. As in, as we continue, did a new guy come in and say just throw everything and then start from scratch? Then that would be, I consider, a failure of enterprise architecture. It should sustain and guide the organization over multiple years. Okay, let me see. I take the next question. Okay, let me read the question. So again, how does the EA manage complexities in the breadth of knowledge architect for the whole ecosystem? EA may not be experts in all systems, and different businesses may have contradictory requirements. You are spot on, actually. I can elaborate on the question by saying that EA is definitely not expert in any of the systems. So one of the very important skills that the EA needs is the ability to work with other experts. So there are two skills. One is because of the breadth, right? Is the ability to work with other experts to distill what is important for decision making, yeah, that's a lot of art there. The second bit is, and this is even more challenging, is, as you alluded to, where different healthcare professionals have different points of view. For example, doctors and pharmacists will see the world very differently, and then with the finance people, again, seeing the world differently. So these are some of the skills that other than the hard technical skills, I would encourage people who are interested in EA to focus on developing these. It's the soft skills that will carry you long. Wow. Okay, let me take the next question. Okay, these are good questions, by the way. So this question comes from, this question comes from Shang. Two questions. One is what type of systems are used? Are microservices part of it? Second question is that you mentioned that many of the systems used are CORDs. Doesn't mean that IHIS doesn't have a lot of control over the architecture. Okay, you are quite right. For a lot of our core systems, we are very CORDs reliant, and for those, yeah, absolutely, you're absolutely right. We just have to take whatever architecture they provide. Having said that, a lot of our we have quite a lot of systems of engagement. The health hub that I mentioned, that's an in-house developed product. We do have, in fact, that's where quite a large development team is. And we also have quite a few other systems that we are developing. Many of the new systems that like, if I recall correctly, some of the telehealth systems, a lot of the new systems are indeed microservices based. And our challenge really as architects is how to make these work together. Yeah. How do we develop the architecture that will expose the APIs in a safe way that doesn't kill the either the CORD system or the older legacy systems. Yes, so that's that's both the skills that is required and the skills that you learn, to be completely honest, as you work on these projects. Wow, messages are coming in. So I'll just keep going until somebody stops me. Yeah. How do you? Oh, this is a good question. So Hadi asks, how do you manage changes in enterprise strategic goal, knowing that the EA roadmap is spanned over multi-year and business demand on so, and that's why the enterprise architect really has to be plugged in to the planning function anywhere and everywhere. The moment we know that somebody's trying to do either new strategic planning or whatever, the job the enterprise architect is actually be sensitive to that. If there are any changes in the wind, so to speak, and then to adapt and adjust whatever that we have developed to make it continually relevant. I hope you don't think that that's a cop out, what I just said. Right? It sounds like a whole lot of words with meaning, but it's really an art more than a science. Let's see. Yeah, Shane just said it's a lot of system integration. No, more than just system integration and ETL. We have to rely on things like API gateways, API management. The integration itself, sorry for being a bit deep. The integration itself is not the only challenge. Remember, I mentioned all the entities that we watch out for. Is it safe? Will they overload the current systems and then blow up our production systems, things like that. So these are really things that we work on.